everyone, and welcome to the OnlyLandFans show. My name is Kendall Lejeune, and our guest today is Edwin Carrion. Edwin Carrion, a self-made millionaire and dedicated family man, has founded multiple multi-million-dollar businesses in fields like real estate, precious metals, and logistics. With over 20 years of diverse industry experience, he now focuses on mentoring and emphasizing a balanced, value-driven approach to success. A former U.S. Marine, his principles of honor, courage, and commitment fuel his passion for teaching others how to achieve professional and personal fulfillment. Edwin is a dynamic speaker, celebrated for his charisma and energy, and has authored 9 secrets for a successful life in business. Featured in major publications like New York Weekly and Entrepreneur Magazine Asia, Edwin is committed to guiding professionals and entrepreneurs towards their goals. Edwin, thanks so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm doing amazing, Kendall. Thank you for having me here. And I'm happy because today is another milestone. This is my second podcast of 2024. So I'm super excited for that.
Right on. We're so glad to be part of a milestone for you. I've wanted to have you on this podcast for quite some time, ever since I saw you speak live at a conference that we both attended. And so super honored that you are going to share your wisdom and knowledge with us today. So let's jump right in. How did you get started in doing land deals?
I got started back in real estate development per se in 2002, just fresh out of the Marine Corps, young kid, had no experience, had no knowledge, but I needed to do something. I needed to get in some type of business. And of course, the one business that was brought to my attention by my mother was become a real estate developer. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. And we'll talk about the story later on, but that's when I got started back in 2002. So it's been 23 years now, 22 years. It's been a while.
Wow. So what was that experience just getting into real estate development? Obviously, that must have been a huge learning curve. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes, it was a huge learning curve, especially when you don't have a mentor, when you have no knowledge of how the business works, and you have to figure out everything on yourself and on your own. The first thing that happened to me was that before I got out of the Marine Corps, I was trying to figure out, okay, I'm going to become a real estate developer. What does that entail? Buy the land and build on it. The first thing I started figuring out, okay, buying the land seems easy. There's nothing to it. Okay, I got that part unpacked. Wrong. The second thing is I started figuring out how to build, and I thought I knew how to build because I found somewhere on the internet how to build. And pretty much when I left the Marine Corps and I live in Miami, come to find out, I learned how to build in the Northeast, which is everything made out of sticks, wood, plywood, and in Florida, we don't build that way. In Florida, we build with CVS, concrete blocks, concrete steel bars. Pretty much it was back at square one. And that's one of the huge things that I always emphasize. We need to have a mentor because it cuts the learning curve so drastically.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you read my mind. That was going to be the very next question that I was going to ask you is, what type of mentor did you have? How did you go about learning how to get into this business? Did you have a mentor? Did you have a coach? Did you go through courses? What was that education process like for you when you first got started?
But back in 2002, I wasn't as privileged as all our listeners are nowadays, which there's so much information, there's so much access to a lot of people nowadays. And to me, it was really hard because I had to figure out where can I find somebody mentor that was near me. And I was very fortunate enough to find a contractor that was willing to mentor me. And the way that he mentored me is pretty much he gave me a checklist. Hey, if you're going to build your first house, this is how you're going to build your foundation. These are the first 10 steps. And I did that. I followed step by steps. I didn't get detailed instructions on how to do it, but I followed the steps along the way. And that's how I was able to build up my own system. But the one thing that I didn't have, I never had a mentor of how to buy land the right way. And because we're on this podcast and it's all about OnlyLandFans and only land, there's a lot of intricacies about buying land. I'm buying the right land because at one point in my career, I thought I made it big. I thought I made the hugest deal in life. I was able to buy around 11 pieces of land right next to each other. I'm like, oh, I'm going to make millions of this. I was able to negotiate the seller more than 50% off. And sure enough, the moment that I closed on it, I have my my tractor trailer out there ready to clear the land, to knock down all the trees. And an hour later, I told him, hey, we're close. Go ahead, start demolishing all the trees and clearing that land for construction. An hour later, he calls me, Edwin, this land is wetlands. You cannot build on it. That was $800,000 worth of my money, cash, sitting there that I wasn't able to build on it.
Wow. Okay, so I want to dig into that a little bit because I have so many questions. I want to unpack that a little bit. Uh, so what did you do with $800,000 worth of wetlands that you couldn't build on? What did you end up doing with that?
You have to become creative, and that's part of being an entrepreneur, right? As an entrepreneur, it's not only about becoming a land flipper or becoming a land buyer. You have to think it as an entrepreneur. And what do we do as entrepreneurs? We solve problems, and we figure out the solutions to every problem. So that's one of the things that I have to do. Now, the first thing I have to do is I have to figure out how can I get rid of this land, of this thing that I thought it wasn't worth anything. How can I kind of at least get my money back without having to have that huge loss at the beginning of my career? Because that was at the beginning of my career, during my first year.
Wow, yeah, I
So
mean
what
that could have
I
that
have
could
to
have
do,
sunk you right there, right?
yes,
My gosh.
yes, that could have sunk me right there. And again, and that's why I talk about it, and I stress so much. It's always great to have a good mentor in your life, in all aspects of your life. It's going to cut the learning curve, or it's going to minimize the loss. On this case, what did I do? First thing is I had to figure out if it's not buildable, what can you do with it? The good thing about it that I found out is that when you buy wetlands, developers that love to build huge projects use wetlands to offset credits. For example, if you buy a piece of land that you can only build one house on it, but you want to build two houses on it, you buy a piece of property on the wetlands, and that gives you credit to be able to buy two houses, to be able to build two houses.
Interesting. Okay. I love this. I love this. This is fascinating. I had no idea about this. Cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
and a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
There's other people that make so much money in real estate. That's a huge way to offset credits, because what you could do is you could have, let's say you end up buying a piece of property or that piece of wetlands for $5,000, right? But the next property right next to it is a piece of property that you could build on it, and that property is worth $100,000. You could bring a surveyor and use that to offset taxes if you make a lot of money, and you could offset the whole $100,000 because of those wetlands.
Wow. Okay. So now you got my gears turning. I want to know more. I want to know more. How did you go about selling this $800,000 parcel of wetlands? And did it have to be nearby to a builder's other project, or how
No,
did that all
not
work?
at all, not at all. Like, especially in Florida, you could buy wetlands in the Everglades. There's parcels that you could buy in the middle of nowhere in the Everglades to be able to offset the things that you want. The things that I did, because we were not on the Everglades, we were like on a good location and a good area. There's quite a few things that you could have done with this piece of land. Number one, use it to offset the taxes. Number two, use it to offset credits into another project. Or number three, really go through the due diligence process and make sure that you're able to build it, because let's say the lot was 100 by 50. The average lot was 100 by 50 or 75 by 100. So the 100 feet were not 100% wetlands, only maybe the last 25 feet were wetlands. So you kind of have to make sure that you're able to do like a mitigation where you're able to build a part of the land. So that's what exactly we did, all the due diligence. We figured everything out, and we put a great package together with all the benefits and all the pros for this property. And I found a great realtor, and that was young, that was hungry, that was ready to find a buyer. And within 6 months, we flipped that and we make money. I made money in that deal.
Wow. Wow. So did the end buyer end up actually doing anything with that property other than just using it to offset credits, or did they build on it too?
I, I don't remember what happened, but I know if you go back into those properties now, a couple of those have been developed. A couple of those people built homes on.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. That's so cool. You hear a lot about, I know a lot of different investors. I've talked to a lot of different land flippers, and a lot of people say, I scrub out my wetlands. Like anything that comes back wetlands, I don't do anything with it. So I know that's a very popular kind of mainstream thought, but hearing this
Yes.
about offsetting credits and all this other stuff, it sounds like there might even be a niche within a niche that if you target wetlands and then package it the right way to these end buyers, that you could actually be getting some serious deals out of this, which is so
Oh,
cool.
yes, definitely. Because a lot of times, like I mentioned a minute ago, only because a property has wetlands in it, that doesn't mean that it's not a usable property. 10% could be wetlands. The other 90% cannot be wetlands. So all you have to do is, I had one of my friends that built on a property that had wetlands, and I think it's one of those properties. Actually, now thinking back, I met the developer that built on that lot that we were talking about a minute ago, one of those guys that we were talking about. And what he ended up doing is he ended up doing like a house on stilts.
Mm.
So like the public wetlands were underneath the house, and that was used as a porch area. But then he had a nice house with an elevated entrance.
So cool. So cool. All right. So you were able to make money on this property that you thought, oh my gosh, I might have just lost $800,000. And then you turned that into a
Yes.
profitable deal. After that experience, how did you go about finding more land? Did you get a mentor to say, okay, maybe I need someone to show me exactly what I need?
No,
What did you
no,
do?
like I said, like I mentioned, unfortunately for me was all OJT, on the job training. I learned as I went. That was I think my biggest blessing and my biggest failure was that one, in order to find out that I couldn't build on it. But as I kept going, I kept learning a lot more. So that's why I'm a very versatile in land development, that I'm able to know when a property is good, when a property is not good. Like, I had put pieces of land that I purchased that, and I'll go back to the beginning, right? I'll go back to the beginning. When I first started developing, I bought two properties side by side, and it was on a main road. But the problem was, because it was a historic road, and eventually it was only a two-lane road, like one way and the other way. Eventually they wanted to expand. And when they wanted to expand, you had to donate a portion of your land to the city. And because you had to donate a portion of the land to the city, your lot became unbuildable because it was too small. And the reason it became unbuildable because there was no water line in the area. So you had to put and there was no sewer line, so you had to put a septic tank. There was water line, there was no sewer. So you had to put a septic tank. And based on the septic tank requirements, you couldn't build on it because the lot was too small. Again, as an entrepreneur, what do? Figure it out, find solutions, right? So one of the things that I had to end up doing is, okay, I didn't just buy this land and not being able to build on it. There has to be a way to be able to build on it, because yes, they want to expand the road, but God knows when they're going to expand the road. Nobody knows when. So one of the things that I did, I had to go back and I had to tell them, hey, when was this land subdivided? So we found what is called grandfather in. Even though the zoning code and the zoning code changes along the way, there's times that the zoning code is going to benefit you. And I'll talk about in a second how it benefited me on a couple of projects that I have, but also how the grandfather, you could always go back into, hey, this is grandfather in, and use that to your benefit. So I use that to my benefit, that because it was grandfather in, I'm able to build on it. And even though I have to donate some of the land in order for me to build on it, that they still have to count that as part of the property lines. So it gave me enough square footage that I needed in order for me to put that septic tank and build a house on it.
Wow, that's very cool. I love that. I love the creativity in that particular kind of process. That's so cool. So let's talk a little bit now about what types of deals do you specialize in now? Are you still finding the land, buying the land, developing from ground up all the way to end stage construction? What does your business model look like now?
My business model has always been developer, real estate developer. And the reason I love being a real estate developer, because you're like at the top of the echelon, right? A lot of people love flipping. A lot of people love going into doing house flipping. And to me, the margin of error is so huge and the profit margin is so small that if you don't make a really calculated risk, you're going to lose a lot. So that's number one. Number two, wholesaling. To me, when I think about wholesaling, I'm like, my God, why are you giving up so much equity, so much value, instead of you just taking care of the project? And one of the things that I learned is that it's pretty much like when you think about manufacturing, right? When you manufacture, you have the biggest profit margins. So development, to me, you have the biggest profit margins. And a lot of the people that are into the land business, like the land buying business and the land flipping business, like off the ground, they're buying land at the cheapest value that you could get. So that means that whatever you put in it, you're going to be able to get your return on investment a lot more than just selling the land alone. And the other thing is that the more land that you acquire, the better you are, because God is not making any more land, right? And that's why you notice that certain areas you have to tear down and build vertical because there is no more land. Land is always going to be a hot commodity. It's just like gold. You have to always keep searching for gold, but land is there and there's no more of it. When you get land, you deal with it. My business model is continue buying land to continue doing development projects. And to fast forward my experience, I bought a piece of property around 6 years ago. That was like my latest acquisition, a piece of property. When I purchased the property, the seller was selling me because I was able to build 4 houses on it. Because I did my due diligence and I talked to you about how the zoning code benefits you or could hurt you, because I know how to do the right due diligence, I knew that I was able to build 20 units on that piece of land. So when I acquired the land, I acquired it on a price of 4 units, but I knew I could build 20 units. So my cost of land by doing that just dropped tremendously. So my profit margin just went up, right? Sure enough, we started working on the plans. I invested like around $50,000 on the schematics to do a 20-unit apartment building. And when I got to submit the plans, the zoning department manager, I'm submitting the plans to get my approvals. I'm like, why? You know the code just changed. I'm like, what do you mean? So now you can build up to 51 units. So now
Wow.
my value just went up 100x on that piece of land, maybe 1,000x, because it went up so much compared to what I bought it for right now. And I'm sitting on millions of dollars without having to do any work. And that's like the value of land. That's the value of a good investment.
That is incredible. Okay, you've got my wheels turning. My mind's going in a million different directions. Sounds like there's so many opportunities, especially when you start looking at the development side. And let me ask, if someone's listening to this and let's say their bread and butter is just the typical business, like land flipping business, right? Like we buy cheap, we sell it, we mark it up and we sell it. Or maybe you buy cheap, value add, subdivide, something like that. If someone wants to say, okay, sounds like I may be losing out on quite a bit of margin by not developing on it myself, how would someone that has no development experience other than that traditional land flipping model, how would
Yes.
they go about doing their first deal? What would be some of the things that you would advise someone who wants to now start adding a development arm to their business?
And in order to scale any business, you always have to look at the verticals. And in the land flipping game, one of the verticals is development, real estate development. The first vertical is land development. So if you take a raw piece of land, develop the land to be ready to be buildable. If you don't want to go the full on development, then get a schematic done. Present the seller with a set of approved plans. You're taking yourself and your business a step further, and you're gaining and you're adding more value to that piece of land. Meaning that to me, as a developer, if you give me this is a property, identical. And this one, I have to start from scratch, meaning that I have to develop it. That means that I have to do the building plans and I have to go for permitting, versus this one that already is shovel ready, meaning that the plans have been approved, that you already done all the due diligence, that the plans are approved, that if I buy today, tomorrow I start building, this one is more valuable to me. So you're able to sell this one for a premium. So that's the number one part to do. The second thing to do is once you have that and the plans are approved, that you go through the whole process, and that's a learning process to go through that, then at that time, you either hire a mentor to teach you how to do the development, or hire a good contractor that is going to tell you, hey, I'm going to charge you X, and you learn from that contractor as he's building your project. And the only thing is that you really have to make sure that you find a good qualified contractor so you don't lose on it. And that's how you get into the development game.
Love that. So, what would be some of the things that we would need to do in order to vet out if this contractor would be someone that we would want to do our first deal with?
Number one, always check his license and insurance. That's number one off the bat. and making sure that the license belongs to him. Because a lot of times, I have a lot of friends that I'm like, for example, I'm a contractor. And for many years, I have my license inactive because I wasn't really using it. What did I do? I use other friends that are contractors and they'll just sign up for me because they know I'm a developer. So they know I can manage the project. Number one is that when you do hire a contractor, make sure that the license belongs to him. Number two, you have to make sure that to show you how many projects has he built and has he built the type of projects that you're building. If you're building a multi-million-dollar house and you have a contract that has only built a couple of $100 houses, a couple of $100,000 homes, then that's not going to be the builder for you.
Mm.
You have to make sure that you find somebody that has, and then at the same thing, the last thing is making sure that you verify his recommendations, his letters of recommendation that he tells you if he built a house, go in there into the city, search, make sure that his license proof for that permit, making sure that you speak to the owner of the house and, hey, yeah, I confirm he's the one that built my house. Did you have any problems or anything like that?
Yeah, so there's a good amount of due diligence that goes into vetting out that right contractor, right?
Yes. I'm sorry, real quick. The last thing
Yeah.
is never ever pay more than what they built, meaning that make sure you keep them tight with the money because a lot of contractors, what they love to do is take money from this project to use to finish another project that they left behind. So it's always making sure that you keep them tight so you're able to steer the situation and make sure that before you pay them anything, they always give you releases of liens and that you verify the work that you're paying for that it has been completed.
That's really good. That's really good advice. So you also mentioned we could also go the route of finding a really good mentor, right? So what
Yes.
would be some of the things that we would need to do in order to vet a mentor and find one and then start that mentorship relationship?
Yes. One of the things with me personally, and I learned this of going through many mentors in my life. One of the things that I always look for in mentors is that number one, they share my faith. The God is number one in my life for me, and I make sure that we're both on the same page. Number two, that they share my values. Number three is that my mentor is somebody that I want to become, who I'm looking up to.
Mm,
Why? Because if I'm hiring a developer mentor and I want to build multi-million-dollar homes and he doesn't build multi-million-dollar homes, then that's not the mentor for me because he doesn't know where I want to get to or how to get to where I want to go. So that's number
right.
one. Number two, if we don't share the same values, we're going to be disaligned. So he's going to tell me some things that are not going to match my values. And we tend not to listen to that. We only listen to people that share our values and our beliefs. To me, that's extremely important. And also, make sure that he has the experience because a lot of mentors nowadays, I'm noticing there's a lot of gurus coming out there and they really haven't done the work. They really haven't done what they say they're doing. They were able to go online, learn from a course, and put a program together versus really actually doing the work and having that experience of, for example, me as a developer, 23 years experience in the development field. That accounts for more than any book that you could read on any day.
Absolutely. So if someone is looking for a mentor, they're looking for someone whose alignments, whose core values are aligned with theirs, and they find some names. They do
Yes.
their they talk around and they find, okay, I think this is my short list. What type of advice would you give to people? Do you just reach out and say, hey, can you mentor me? Or hey, I'd like to learn from you? Or how do you go about doing that? Hey, land fans! Looking for your tribe of serious land investors? Join thousands of your fellow land lovers in the OnlyLandFans Facebook group. We're talking real deals, expert strategies, and game-changing connections you won't find anywhere else. This isn't just another real estate group. This is the community where land investors come to level up. Join us at onlylandfansgroup.com and join the conversation today. That's onlylandfansgroup.com. See you there.
Just like you said it, reach out to people. I think that's one of the easiest forms of finding the right mentor. Believe it or not, a lot of people are very reachable, and the more that you grow, the more that you want to help out. And what I've done with the people that I wanted them to be my mentors, I have reached out to them directly I'm like, hey, I want you to mentor me. Or if you see the value in them, if you see that they're going to be able to take you to the next level, hey, how much do you want to charge me for one-on-one mentoring? And a lot of times, to me, I'm spoiled at this point in my life. But when I get a mentor, I want to do a one-on-one mentorship because I want to be away from the crowd. I want you to tell me exactly how to do things, how I'm going to grow, what to do. I don't want you to give me the general knowledge. I want you to give me the personalized knowledge, the VIP knowledge, because it's like when you listen to music, on the radio, everybody gets the same song, right? When you go to a concert, the artist is going to give you a different version of that song. But when he sings for you and only for you in front of you, you're going to feel that and you're going to get that. And you know, nobody is ever going to get that song the way that you got that day. So that's the same thing with the mentor. When you start getting that one-on-one mentorship, not only do you have that VIP attention for you, but also you start getting and building that relationship that eventually turns from a mentor-mentee relationship into a friendship. And to me personally, one of the things that I'm doing a lot different than a lot of mentors is that because I believe so much in what I teach and how I mentor, that I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is, meaning that when we finish the mentorship cycle, I invest my own capital, my own money with the people that I mentor.
I love that. So much great information in that. So let's talk about, I want to jump back to that first deal that you did, 800 grand on some wetlands. That's still stuck in my mind. And talk to me a little bit about, this sounds like this was your first deal. How did you get the capital to put 800 grand into just the land for a development?
Okay. So it was not my first deal. I think it was like my fifth or sixth deal.
Okay.
And when I started development, first thing I did, I left the Marine Corps, bought 2 pieces of land, sold one for double the price. So I got the other piece of land for free. And I had enough money to go buy another 2 pieces of property. So I was able to buy the other two and started growing really fast. So that's why I was able to, within a year, to get to that $800,000 to be able to buy all this land cash. When I left the Marine Corps, I had no money. I was in deep debt. Being at 22 years old, I was in huge debt, but I was very fortunate enough that my biggest fan and my biggest believer in my life, which is my mother, she pulled out a huge line of credit on her house and she let me borrow $100,000 to be able to start. And then from there, I was able to build relationships with banks. And at that time, in 2002 was when the real estate bubble started everything. So it was easy for me to be able to go to banks, get loans, and be able to grow really fast. I found a good wholesaler, and that was one of the keys to my success as well. I built a relationship with a great wholesaler that on the area where I was building, he knew a lot of people. So what he would do, he would go everywhere and talk to everybody. And I knew my area so good that I didn't have to go look at the piece of land. I knew what I wanted to buy. So he'll come to me, we got another one. I'm like, okay, perfect. We got another one. We're like closings back to back. But then at the same time, I had other investors that I was building for. I was providing services already for other investors, not only finding them the land, but also building for them. Besides doing my own projects, I had other people that wanted to do the same thing that saw me what I was doing. I'm like, oh, Edwin, can you do this for me? Yeah, I found you the land. I built for you. All you have to do is put the money in. And it was great because the land, I was flipping the land to them for double the price before me buying it. I was building for them. I was making money on the construction. They were making money on the sales, but they were keeping them for rentals. So it was a win situation at that moment. So that's how I was able to buy multiple parcels, and I got to the $800,000.
That is incredible.
I'll tell you a quick story right now about another piece of property. And again, you zone into your advantage, right? So I was able to buy this property. It was a corner lot. And when you read the legal description on this one, it said lot 10 and 11, block 1. When I saw lot 10 and 11, I'm like, oh, I have 2 lots right here. But it was one parcel. When I went to the zoning department, I'm like, hey, it says lot 10 and 11. Can I split this into 2 lots? I'm like, yes. I'm like, perfect. Now I have 2 lots for the price of 1. The other thing that came about is like, but there's always a but, right? But if you split it, you're not going to be able to build on the second one because it's too narrow. What do we do as entrepreneurs?
We figure it out.
Figure it out, find solutions, right? So I'm like, okay, it's too narrow. Okay, if it's too narrow, can I build a narrow house? Yes, if you start looking at the trailers and the trailers where people live in the home trailers, they're very narrow, right? Yeah, I could build a house that is narrow, because it's going to be so narrow, only 20 feet wide. That means that the only thing so it doesn't look like very compacted. I need to make sure that I do high ceilings. So I built a really narrow house with high ceilings, and I was able to build two houses, and I was able to get a lot for free.
Wow, I love that. I love that. So, Edwin, let's say people are looking for property to be able to do developments on. What types of land do you specifically look for? So, okay, I know I'm going to do some type of development project. It's going to go beyond just buying the land and flipping the land. There's a project that I want to do with this. So, can you walk us through your process of how do you go about finding land that is quote unquote the right land by?
Okay, so how do you find the right land? And it's all based on your criteria, right? So I'm going to talk based on my criteria at this moment. So at this moment, I have grown up. I build multi-million-dollar projects. That's my main focus. Properties that are $5 to $10 million. Like my next project is going to be a $10 to $12 million project. So what do I look for in that? Number one, and I'm talking about a single family house. Okay, I'm not talking about a multi-family project. I'm talking about just one house. Location. Number one is location. Becoming the expert in one area. So whenever there's a property that becomes on the market, I know by far that I don't have to go to it. I can just say yes or no. Number one is location. Number two is, has this land been developed if it's a vacant piece of land, why is it vacant in this area where there's a lot of homes that have been built? Or number two, like this acquisition, this project that I'm working on, instead of buying the land because there is no land in the area that I'm building, I bought an old house, like one of the ugliest houses in the neighborhood, because I know I'm going to tear it down and use that to build my development project. Making sure it's within the area that when I put my $12 million house, is going to be able to sell.
Listen up, land fans. This is huge. We're bringing you the one and only Pace Morby, star of A&E's Triple Digit Flip and the mastermind behind $450 million in real estate deals. He's coming to our virtual meetup on Thursday, December 5th to share how he's applying his creative financing genius to land deals. Head to olfmeetup.com to save your spot today. That's olfmeetup.com. This is the kind of opportunity that changes everything.
Excellent. Excellent. And so how do you find target markets? It sounds like you become like an expert in some of these target markets where you know exactly what the value is, what you'll be able to get. But whenever someone's looking for a new target market, how do you even decide, okay, this is somewhere where I want to go, and these are the steps that I need to go to vet this area?
So one of the things is, it goes back again into what is your criteria? What is that you're doing at the moment? When I started into real estate development, because I didn't have a lot of money, because I had to learn everything, I actually focused myself onto an area that was undeveloped, and I could say pretty much that kind of unwanted because it was a really bad neighborhood at the moment. So we had to be, the way that I look at development is that everyone needs a home. Everybody needs a house. So when you build it, they're going to come. And the more that you build, the more that you improve that area. So that was my mentality when I got into development, when I started building in this area where you could probably get killed or get kidnapped or get robbed. And I was okay with that because I was able to develop an area that was really undeveloped and bring value to that area. The one thing that I did, instead of being all over the place trying to build everywhere, I was stuck to one area. And that's what I said, because I stuck to maybe a 2-mile radius when I was doing driving for dollars, how everybody calls it, driving for dollars. Whenever somebody called me, whenever a new property came out on the market, without having to drive to it, I already knew exactly the property where it was, how it was, who owned it, and I was able to negotiate right away without me having to waste time. Because at times it could have been that I owned 3 properties in that block, and I needed the 4th one. To me, if I had to pay an extra $10,000, I would do it because now I have 4 properties and now I'm controlling the price.
For sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And I'm sorry, real quick.
Yeah.
When
go
I
ahead.
talking about, how do you find an area? One of the projects that I did was very far away from me. And I lived in Miami and I did a project in Fort Lauderdale. It took me an hour and a half every single day driving up there and coming back until I said, you know what, this is the last time I do a project like that. I don't want to drive more than 20 minutes to one of my projects. So you become spoiled and you start really figuring out how valuable your time is and what's good for you and what's not good for you. Because I always say, I'd rather be the big shark in a small pond than being the little fish on the ocean.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense. You mentioned that you do it, that a lot of your projects are single family homes. What does your buy box look like? For example, is there a particular rule of thumb that you follow to figure out, okay, I can pay X amount for a lot. This is the max that I can pay for a parcel for me to be able to develop a project on. Is there a formula that you use, or how do you go about figuring out what's a good price for a piece of property that I'm going to do a development project on?
Yes, on development, the formula that you're looking for is around 15 to 25% of the land. Your land should be no more than 15 to 25% of the cost of your project in order for it to be good. When I look at my area right now, I will tell you that I will not buy a piece of property for more than $2 million at this moment. That'll be like my max. Looking for 1 acre lots, only in the Pinecrest area. And things change, right? Depends the areas that you're focusing into. If I look into the Coral Gables area, I know that I'm not going to find 1 acre lots for $2 million because 1 acre lots in the Coral Gables area, they're $10 million. But now you're selling a $50 million house.
Got it. So for those of us who are listening that may not be super familiar with development, again, we're only thinking about, we've only seen the numbers in a land flipping deal. Can you kind of break down what profit margins might look like in a development? Let's say it's a single family home. You mentioned you do $5 to $10 million project. What do the numbers typically look like in a deal like that?
They're right here, actually.
Love
I'll tell
it.
you
Zoom in.
That's my dream board before we started projects. The project that I'm starting, I put it right there. So I'll give you a quick breakdown. On this one, my land cost was $1.3 million, but the land is valued right now at $3.5 million. So I already have a $2 million equity. So it's all how you buy the land. So you're making sure that off the ground at the beginning, you already have equity on the project. From there on, my cost to build is going to be like around $3 million. So with the moment that we build on it, we're going to be all in at a retail value of $6.5 million. And the sale price, we're looking anywhere between 10 to 12 million. So that gives you a profit margin of around $4 million.
Wow. And what's the cash conversion cycle look like for that? So let's say from the minute you buy the land,
24 months.
24 months?
24 months.
Got it. And so let me ask, how do you find a $3.5 million lot for 1.3 million? How did you go about finding that? Was that through a wholesaler?
If you're enjoying this episode of the OnlyLandFans podcast, please let us know by subscribing and leaving a review. Now let's get back to the action.
No, that was not through a wholesaler. That was through a direct seller. And again, it's all about negotiation, right? How do you negotiate the deal? How you give the value, where you're looking for. If you're looking for raw land, how are you able to acquire that? For example, this was an older home. It needed a lot of repairs. Even though it was being sold for almost land value at that time, I told them that it was for single family use because it was for use for a home at this moment. I had to tell them, I showed them what my expenses were going to be to improve into the home in order for me to be able to get a better value. And then at the same time, the seller needed to sell because he wanted the cash out to be able to do something else with that money that he had sitting there for a while, because that has been sitting for 2 years prior for us purchasing the home. And that's how we're able to acquire a good deal.
Wow. So can you walk us through, how do you go about when you put together a marketing campaign to find potential lots for you to be able to do these development projects? How are you doing that? How are you pulling lists? Are you calling? Are you door knocking? How does that work? What does that look like for you?
Nowadays, I don't do a lot of projects. I only do one project every couple of years. And the reason I do that is, like I mentioned a minute ago, this project is going to yield me like about a few $1,000,000 profit. To me, is not working a lot because that's what I used to do back in the day when I used to develop the smaller homes. I used to be 20 homes at a time until I realized that it takes the same amount of time and effort to build 20 small little houses versus one multi-million-dollar home. So that's why I focus into the multi-million-dollar homes so I could have a better quality life and not work as much. I have more of a life balance with my family. Um, I don't do a lot of the advertising and the marketing that you're talking about. But when we do look for the smaller projects, when we do look for the smaller pieces of land to be able to flip like that, is again going into Miami-Dade property appraiser, like going to the property appraiser to see who owns those properties, going around and driving and seeing properties that have overgrown grass, and then sending letters to the owners. Hey, I'm a developer. I want to buy your land. I'm an investor. I'm looking to purchase your property. Do you want to sell? And a lot of times you end up finding deals like that. But to me, I think one of the biggest ones where I find a lot of good deals too is through developers that either got way over leverage, meaning that they're about to go bankrupt. So they're able to sell you good projects. And one of the projects that I purchased a few years ago was an 11 townhome project. It was a nice piece of land to build 11 townhouses. I was able to buy that piece of land for only $600,000. Right now, it's on the market for $1.5 million. Yeah, 1.5 million. So we have it on the market with the plans ready and approved. So that's what I was talking about. How do you add value? If you don't want to develop, then you're able to just get the plans approved and sell it like that. The developer that needed cash because she had other projects going on at that moment and she needed to get rid of those projects first. And she just wanted cash. So I was able to take advantage of that and say, hey, okay, I'll pick up your project. This is what I'll give you for it.
Wow, that's incredible. Obviously, with over 20 years of experience in the business, I'm sure you have a fantastic network and so many developers in your area know you and know who you are. So if someone doesn't have that background, they just maybe have just been on the land side for a while, how would those people find maybe like an over leveraged developer that would be looking to fire sale some of their projects?
Yes. A lot of the one is building relationships with lenders, private lenders in the area. And how do you build those relationships with private lenders in the area? It's pretty much just driving around. And when you see a project that is going up and it's going to say finance by, and by whichever bank, and you call up the bank, hey, I see that you're financing this development project right here. I'm also a developer. I'm also love to buy land. And I want to know what your rates are going to be. But at the same time, if you have any projects or if you know of any projects that you guys are financing that the developer is not fulfilling his end of the bargain, let me know because I'm able to buy those projects. And they'll reach out to you and they'll tell you, hey, this is the book of business that we have. And sometimes you don't even have to, like a couple of years ago, I was going to do a nice deal. It was going to be an apartment building for 12 townhomes. And because I have a good relationship with the lender, and I knew the developer that was going on there, all we were going to do is just transfer guarantees from his to mine, and I was going to be able to take over the project.
Wow. Wow. So is it like did you assume the loan, like a subject to thing?
Like assuming the loan, but changing guarantees.
So
But on this
cool.
project, it didn't go through because the numbers didn't make sense what they wanted. But there's ways that you could do that.
Yeah. Okay. So if someone is looking to start building a network of developers, where would you suggest that they go? Are there certain local REIs that they can look up? Phone, Google? What's
Social media. I think social media is one of the biggest ones nowadays. It plays a huge part. You and I stay connected through social media after we met at that event. And that's what I'm here sharing my knowledge with you. And I appreciate that. Thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. But
Thank you for coming.
social media it plays a huge part nowadays that you have to create a good personal brand in order for people to take you seriously, in order for you to be able to network, in order for you to be able to get ahead in business and in life. It's having that social presence. A lot of times we like to be private because we don't want people to see who we are and what we do. But at the end of the day, if you don't have that presence, your network just become a lot smaller. And nowadays with social media, you're able to go worldwide, which is an amazing thing. Me having that experience, having that knowledge, of being a developer and having a good social media presence has opened a lot of doors now that I live in South America in order for me to start looking into opportunities coming my way to be able to do development projects in South America.
That's incredible. I have to tell you, your social media presence is absolutely incredible. I definitely want to be like you when I grow up in that regard as well. So, can you talk to us a little bit about what are some of the elements that you would consider absolutely necessary in a good personal brand, a good social media presence?
I think is you have to share a little bit of what you do and share a little bit of what you do, but also share your personal life. People like to do business with people. People don't like to do business with business. And I think the most important thing is be authentic, be who you are, be transparent. People could tell the fakes, and eventually the fakes come out. So be who you are. And the people that are going to come to you, the people that are going to relate to you, are going to be the people that are like minded and the people that either look up to you or want to be like you or you want to be like them. And that's what you want to do on a personal branding level. Really be authentic. I think there's no other word than that. Just be authentic. Be yourself.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think that I completely agree. I think when you put yourself out there and you show who you are, like the right people come to you. You find your tribe will find you.
Yes.
So, let's jump back to some of the land development that we were talking about earlier. So, are you looking for, I'm assuming you're looking for vacant lots as well in some of these projects, but how many of your projects from a percentage standpoint would you say are that you're buying old homes that have existing structures and you're just tearing those down to build on top of those versus just finding some vacant lots?
Nowadays, because of the range of homes that I'm in, 90% is old homes, lots with homes for tear downs.
Got it. That makes total sense. So if someone's listening to this and they're like, oh my gosh, Edwin, you have just lit my world on fire. I want to start looking for these types of properties. Would you suggest that maybe not to get started in $5 to $10 million single family projects, or if a beginner is hungry and wants to put in the work, say, yeah, go for it? What would you suggest that they do? Is that a good starting point?
I think it's a great starting point if you have the capital for it and the backing for it. I wouldn't recommend it unless you have a good mentor that is going to help you along the way, because the mistakes are just greater. Let's say you end up doing a bathroom and the bathroom is going to cost you $60,000 versus a $500,000 house, which is only cost you 10 grand. If you make a mistake, it's a $50,000 mistake. So it's a huge mistake. You have to make sure be ready for those huge mistakes. Everything costs you 10 times as much, but the payout and the reward is big as well. So the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. But starting out, I always tell the people that I mentor in real estate development, let's start with a small house first. I want you to get your feet wet, because no matter how much knowledge I give them and no matter how much I tell them, people tend to do what they want to do at the end of the day.
That's so true.
They do things how they want to do.
That's right.
So I'm only there to guide them, not to make them do things the way that they want. And a lot of times, you tell the people that you mentor, hey, this is going to happen if you do it this way, but they still want to figure out. They're like kids. They still want to figure out on their own. And even though you tell them, don't do this as a parent, they're going to do it because they want to learn on their own.
Sure.
And then you're able to tell them, I told you we should try it this way, but you wanted to do it this way. Which is okay. Now you learn. So start with a small house first, see how that goes, see if that's going to be for you, and then move on to the bigger projects. I have one of the guys that I mentored many years ago. They did a couple of projects, and then afterwards they realized development wasn't for them.
Got it. So when you say smaller projects, what would you suggest would be like, okay, you've done some land deals, you've got a land business, you've flipped properties. What type of entry level project would you suggest if someone wants to give a shot to development? What size project?
I think nowadays, and based in general America, right, in general the United States, a level entry home is $500,000. Pretty much nowadays, you cannot find not much under $500,000. Now, all depends where you live, right? If you live in North Carolina in a small little town, then we're talking about maybe $100,000 or $150,000 home. But pretty much everywhere else in a metropolitan city, you're talking about $500,000 house. That's like your starting point, a $500,000 project.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about what are some of your main deal breakers when you're looking at properties. You've got your area. Let's say a project comes across your desk. Obviously, the numbers have to work, but are there any deal breakers that you have at the land level that whenever you see it, it's just land, you look at it and you're like, this is not going to work for a project?
Like I mentioned, I have so much experience that I've been through everything that nothing scares me nowadays. I have to do water lines, sewer lines, I have to do streets, I have to do main extension lines, you name it, I've done it. So nothing scares me because to me, all of those are those are advantages to me because I could use that as an advantage. Let's say if I find a piece of land that you need to do a water line, a sewer line, and you need to do a road, I use that as a buying power for me because now I got to tell the seller, hey, nobody's going to buy this because now they have to do a water line and the water line is going to cost you this. And you have to do an entitlement and you have to put a bond on it for many years. For 5 years, you have to put up a bond and you're going to have a hard time selling this. So now I use that to my advantage to buy it at the price that I want because I know that I'm able to do that and I know that I could do that cost effectively.
Excellent. Yeah, I love that. I love that.
So to finalize, the only deal breaker is an unbuildable lot.
Unbuildable. Got it. And it sounds like a lot of that just comes down to creativity, right? Like you were when you mentioned that long house,
Yes.
like a shotgun style house, right? That's remarkable.
Yes.
I love that. I love that. So let me ask you, what would you consider to be the biggest challenge in your business from ground up development, from buying the land all the way to the development? What's one of the biggest challenges in that particular business model?
Yes. The biggest challenge in development is the cash flow. It's not a cash flow business. And I think now that I own multiple companies, one of my companies that I own is a transportation company. That's like a cash flow cow. You get paid every week. Every day we get paid. Pretty much cash flow is constant. And real estate development is not cash flow constant. It's not a cash flow business. It's a business that you put in, but when you see the reward, you see a huge payout. I think there's like a movie, and I don't remember the name of the movie. Is Dad, can we buy this? Can we go out? No, we don't have any money. And then all of a sudden, one day, Dad comes around and buys them everything and takes them everywhere. So that's like the hard part that you have to learn to not have those immediate rewards, to be consistent, to be patient, to have the big reward at the end of the project.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You've worked with a lot of different projects. You've done a lot of different things in the real estate space, specifically talking about land. I'd love to hear your perspective on this in terms of what do you think that not many people or not enough people are talking about when it comes to the land business that we should be talking about right now in the industry?
The development part, the land development part. I think everybody's focused, and I think it's a huge fad that's going on. Like, there's always a new bubble that comes around. And the new bubble that I see right now, it's everybody wants to be a land wholesaler because house flipping became a house wholesaling became so saturated that people needed to find wholesalers needed to find another way where they could create fast income. And that's when we talk about the quick returns. So they went into the land wholesaling. But that's going to die down because it's going to come to a point where you're not going to find the land buyers, where you're not going to find the people that want to buy the land because they don't understand what land is and they don't want to sit on land. Land development is a huge niche that has been around for centuries that not everybody's doing. Again, to me, it goes back to what I said at the beginning. If you're able to buy land so cheap, you have a head start to become a developer and be very successful at development.
That's incredible. So the last nut and bolt question that I want to follow up on is, so let's say someone can find dirt cheap land, they can buy it. This would be a good project for them to work on. But let's say in the land business, sometimes you don't have capital. Like capital is a problem, I think, for a lot of businesses, right? And so you mentioned financing with banks. You've also mentioned some private lenders. How would you suggest that someone go about funding these types of projects if they don't have $100,000 line of credit or a ton of cash? How would they go about overcoming that capital hurdle to be able to do that type of deal?
Okay. No, I love that you asked me these questions. And that's one of the huge limiting beliefs that a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of young entrepreneurs have. I don't have money, or money is an issue. And one of the biggest things that I teach people and I tell people is that when they ask me the question, do you need money to start a business? And I tell them, yes, you need the money to start a business, but you do not need to have the money to start a business. It's the same thing with development, right? Do you need money for development? Yes, you do. Do you need to have the money to become a developer? You don't, because there's so much money out in the world. We're so blessed that God created abundance for us. We live in a world of abundance. Is there a lot of land right now? There's a lot of land. Is there a lot of money being printed every day? There's trillions of dollars being printed every day, right? You might not have that. Somebody that has it. So go to them, raise capital for them, present to them the huge opportunity that it becomes in development, and find yourself a capital partner. You have two things in business. You either find yourself a technical partner that is going to teach you how to do it, become a developer if you have the money. And if you don't have the money, but you're a good developer and you could develop, find yourself a capital partner. Find yourself and raise the capital.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. Shifting gears a little bit, what would you consider to be your superpower?
My superpower, God gave me this blessing to be good in business, to be able to start anything from the ground up and build it into a multi-million-dollar company. And the next superpower he gave me is that to pass on that knowledge to as many people as I can. And that's why I'm here sharing my knowledge and my experience with you
I
and with all
absolutely
the
love that.
listeners.
Absolutely love that. You mentioned you had several businesses, you even mentioned a transportation business. Tell us, what's the list of businesses that you have?
I own a transportation company, and a transportation company, we move throughout the United States, all the way in the Northeast. We have the big tractor trailers with the big tractors, the big trailers, you name it, all those things. And we move produce throughout the Northeast United States. And that's a cash flowing business. When I talked about different businesses, right? That's the cash flowing businesses. My wealth creation business is my real estate development company. That's the type of business that continues creating. I build a project, I make a few $1 million that creates more wealth, and I put that into another project, and it starts to create that generational wealth. Because in life, we have to look for that financial freedom. A lot of people don't think about the financial freedom. They think about building $100 million company, $100 million business, but a lot of times they don't realize that $100 million business doesn't give you financial freedom, or doesn't create the wealth and the freedom that you want to have in your life. So that's number two. And my third business is, like you asked me again, my God-given talent to be able to mentor and teach people and invest in people everything that I have learned in business, to teach them how to start any business from scratch and take it to a multi-million-dollar business.
Beautiful. Beautiful. What's your definition of success?
Live on your own terms. Pretty much live by design. Do whatever you want, travel the world, spend as much time with your family, be able to be financially free. I think that's success. Success is me being able to right now live in another country. I just moved to Colombia, South America last year. So I'm able to live here and travel the world and spend as much time with my kids, and my kids being able to be homeschooled, so they learn about a lot more about life, about business, about everything else that they want to do, and get to live amazing experiences. Because at the end of the day, when I die, the only thing I could leave to my kids is the experiences that I lived with them. So I try to create as many experiences that I can on an everyday life. And for me, coming into this podcast, my success is coming in, showing up, and leaving a legacy. Because maybe people don't hear this podcast today, but 10 years down the road, somebody's going to hear it and it's going to change their life.
Absolutely. Now, I love that. That's such a rich legacy, and just being super intentional about what you want to create in life. I think that's just incredibly inspiring. We did talk earlier about some failed developers, or not maybe not failed developers, but maybe over leveraged developers with some struggling projects. what would you say that you do differently than those people that helps to contribute to your success?
Number one, I learned from my mistakes. I was one of them. I was that failed developer that was extremely over leveraged, that went bankrupt and lost all the money, all the millions that I made back in the real estate bubble. The thing that I did was I learned from my mistakes and I make sure that the second time around, I'm never going to be over leveraged again.
Very good. Very good. Do you have any types of favorite authors, business owners, entrepreneurs that you like to read and follow?
Yes, I have quite a few of them. My favorite book of all times is Business Secrets from the Bible. I think that's a very powerful book, and it changed a lot of the limitation beliefs uh, that we have as humans. And growing up, that money is a bad evil, that you shouldn't have money because you become stingy. And I think that book just opens up everybody's mind into that, especially if you believe in God, if you're a God follower, that it's okay to become successful. It's okay to become rich because the more money that you have, the more that you're able to help and bless other people. So that's number one. Number two, another one of my favorite books, I have a couple of them here. Make Big Happen. It's a good friend of mine, Mark Moses, huge into business. And then he has business and to US entrepreneurial traction is a very good one, which is to talk about, and I follow that in my businesses, which is how to have a good entrepreneurial operational system in your business. How are you able to run a business without having to work? Because one of the things that I like to do is I like to make millions, but I don't like to work. So how do you do that? That's how I'm able to teach people how to do that.
I love that. I love that so much. So, what would you consider to be the biggest surprise you've had so far in your journey into real estate development?
Biggest surprise, I don't know. I don't know what it was or what it's been. I think just going bankrupt, I think that was probably my biggest surprise because I never thought that I would lose everything that I worked for hard. I think the biggest surprise was that losing everything, but also humbling down and understanding that was my biggest lesson in life, that I became too cocky. I became too thinking that nothing was going to happen, nothing was going to take me down, and learning from those mistakes.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. If you could go back and tell yourself three pieces of advice when you were a brand new beginner, what would they be?
Number one, keep doing everything the way that you're doing because you're going to make it far. Number two, don't change anything about who you are, how you are. But then the number three will be make sure you choose your business partners wisely.
That's a big one. That's a big one. Yeah. So, what would you consider to be your biggest passion or goal you'd like to achieve at this point in your life?
Business or personal?
Both.
So my biggest goal is, again, I just started last year into really the mentoring part and the business consulting part is really to impact as many lives as I can. And because I really believe in investments, right? And the two biggest investments that I think you can make, number one is real estate, but number two is entrepreneurs. So I'm able to build very solid entrepreneurs, very solid people that are able to teach them how to become successful. Then I wouldn't have a problem investing in them because I know that's going to be one of my biggest return on investments. So that's number one. Number two is to continue building amazing experiences for my family and I, to be the best role model for my kids. I have two girls, so I want them to find great men like myself. And that's why I try to be the best man that I can for them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Could you tell us a little bit about your mentorship program? What types of entrepreneurs do you specialize in working with? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I have quite a few programs. Remember, the first one is called a Startup to Millions 365. That's like the entry level program. It's a 1 year program where I teach entrepreneurs, any types of entrepreneurs that are making less than 500,000 a year, how to get to the millions. Because that's the hardest part. The hardest part of any business is getting to your first $1 million. The moment that you break that, you figure it out. It's how do we get to the next 5, 10, 15 million? It's a simple program and it has a lot of tactical information. And the thing that I love about this, and one of the things that I learned many years ago, is that if you could teach a man to fish, they could fish all kinds of fish, right? They could catch any fish. So it's the same thing with my program, is that if I'm able to teach you how to set up a company the right way, how to grow a company the right way. It doesn't matter whether you're doing land flipping, development, construction, transportation, you're going to become successful. There's no doubt about that. So I teach you the basics and I teach you how to have that balance in life. Because to me, when I went bankrupt, I didn't have a balance in life. I was overweight. I was unhealthy. My girlfriend cheating on me. All these things happened in my life, business partners. So I realized that we need to have a balance in life because I had nothing to show for when I lost everything. From there on, I realized that in order for me to have, I have to live my life by design. So I teach you that there's a lot of mentors that will tell you there's no such a thing as having balance in life when you want to become successful. But if you really look at them, they're either single, they're divorced, they don't have a good relationship, they're working every day. And that's not the life that I want to live. I want to live a successful life. And that means that doing whatever I want when I want, not having to work 40 hours a week and still make millions. And that's why I don't go for the 100 of millions. I go for the millions because I'm happy with that. That gets to a point that money can only buy so much. And then you get that immediate happiness with all the money that you get. And then that's it. Right. Can I teach you how to build a $20 million business? Yes, because I have done it multiple times. And that's part of my mentoring program. I take you through those steps, but it's always starting out into the Startup to Millions 365. If you're sporty like me, that you like the one-on-one attention, then the same thing, I'll teach you. I have a one-on-one program, and just reach out to me. Go to my website, edwincarrion.com, fill out a form, and we'll go from there.
Excellent. I love that. Sounds like some really fantastic opportunities. Edwin, I want to thank you for just being so generous with your time and for giving to us so much today. How can we give back to you right now? What types of resources or connections are you currently looking for?
At this moment, I'm looking for entrepreneurs that really want to learn how to grow their business, how to scale their company, how to get to the next level, whether it's land flipping, whether it's in development. You want to learn more about development. I have a development program that I created that I personally love to teach people. And you see how passionate I am about development. If you want to learn
light up.
not to make mistakes, how to find more land, how to get more deals, I'm not going to teach you that. I'm going to teach you how to set up the business the right way in order for you to become a successful land wholesaler. So send me leads, send me people that are willing and interested into growing their business and getting to the $1 million.
I absolutely love that. So if we want to get in touch with you, if we know some entrepreneurs, maybe the entrepreneurs are listening themselves and they want to get involved with you, you mentioned your website. Can you tell us your website again? And is that the best way for us to reach out to you?
That's one of them. My website is edwincarrion.com. And you can find me in all the social media channels, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Edwin Carrion 78.
Excellent. So we'll definitely put that in the show notes as well. Edwin, I want to thank you so much for sharing. This has just been such a cool conversation to hear what goes beyond how does land fit into a bigger model. So it's really cool. Such a wealth of information. Thank you so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure, my friend. Thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to catching you in the next one. Until then, take care, be safe, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye. If you're interested in hearing from other seven-figure land flippers about how they've started and run their businesses, then join us at OnlyLandFans.com. Looking forward to seeing you there.